Hi, this is Fred Copestake, your host to the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast. Based on the book, the podcast explores how sales professionals can use the power of partnering intelligence to take their selling to the next level. By combining the skills associated with better partnering and existing best practice, salespeople can ensure their approach is more modern and collaborative. There are 6 elements to PQ, and in each episode we look at how sales professionals have used these and how their insights can contribute to your success. And welcome to today's episode. Hello, and welcome to today's episode where I am joined by Jens Hentschel, who is founder of the Fivis Partnership, who consult on procurement and sales. So I'm really excited about today because we're going to hopefully get a bit of an insider view on what procurement look for in the sales relationship. So Jens, welcome.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate to be on your show.
No, and thank you for taking the time to join us. I wonder if you could just give us a little bit more of your own background, to put into context where you're coming from and why. I hope this is going to be such an interesting conversation.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, I've been in procurement and supply chain management all my career. I always say I'm working on the dark side. Maybe some of your listeners might see the procurement function as such. But for me, procurement was always a passion, not just a profession, but really a passion. Despite the fact that I never intended to go to procurement, I just happened to end up in procurement, as most buyers out there, to be quite honest with you. So look, I worked for many different companies and organizations, and roughly 3 years ago, I decided to found this company, the Fivis Partnership. And what we predominantly do is, the original idea was to go into procurement teams and really help them to become more customer-centric, to become more strategic, more operationally astute, etc., etc. But what we realized, Fred, when the first time I stepped out of this corporate career and I could openly talk with you guys, the suppliers and vendors that I've been interacting with over my professional career. So the first time I interacted with them, I could frankly and openly talk with them about how do they perceive procurement, and I was shocked by the answers that I received. To be totally transparent with you, it was really shocking. A lot of people told me, Jens, look, most of procurement guys are just blockers. They don't want to cooperate with sales. We actually don't know what you guys are doing. You're a black box to us. And that's where we thought as an organization then that we need to actually do something about that, because we fundamentally believe as a procurement professional, you can only be successful if you have the best suppliers out there, the best sales teams out there that support your agenda, your goals, etc., etc. So we need to do something to build bridges between sales and procurement to help the functions understand each other better. Because in the end of the day, you know it, Fred, right? We're working towards the same goals, and only through mutual understanding we can achieve these goals. So this is in a nutshell what we do. We help procurement teams to become better, and we help sales team to better understand procurement.
That's fantastic. And so immediately anybody that was having any element of those dark side thoughts should be thinking, whoa, hang on a minute, I want to listen to this guy because he's already on the same side as us and is going to help us think about how we can start to do that. What practical steps can we do? So let's just think, let's go through the PQ model, because I'm sure there are so many things that you could share with us. But if we focus on these elements of PQ, which is the intent of this particular podcast, I'm sure that will kind of drive us into some of the things that you'll be able to help salespeople with. And people who listen to this regularly will know I always start with trust, because for me it just makes most sense to do that, because it is the foundation for all the relationships. And it's very difficult to communicate without it and look for mutual outcomes and some of the things that you've already said. So again, how do you think that salespeople can build better trust with procurement professionals?
Yeah, that's a very important point, Fred. And I think what a lot of salespeople tell me is that it's extremely difficult to build trust with their counterpart, with a professional buyer. what they always tell me is that, look, I mean, you guys only come in and you want to squeeze me on price, on my margin, and you're never happy with the proposal that we put in front of you, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing for us though is, if you put yourself into the procurement position, we obviously do buying for a living. And in most organizations, we are the only ones that, that have a view on where market prices should be, right? Or where a price, how a service should be priced at, how much a software should cost, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole organization, our organization, looks towards us to say, what is the right price for XYZ product that we need to be procuring in the market? And obviously, in any kind of seller-buyer relationship, you need to have that dance, this initial dance around, can I trust you, Fred, that you actually, with the price that he put on the table, that this is actually a trustworthy price, or are you just sandbagging on your side? Are you trying to get a higher margin, more profit, et cetera, or can I trust you with the price proposal that you've put on the table? And this is for me where it starts. A commercial relationship starts with that initial dance around, is a price actually a trustworthy price? Can I trust the supplier, the vendor, the salesperson in what they say the product does? This is really the crucial element. And as soon as you've reached that step where I fully trust you, then we talk about value. For me, always in my professional career, that negotiation process where we just try to figure out, can we trust each other, in most instances was just a waste of time, because I wanted to form a relationship with you as a supplier so that we can focus on building value together. Now, if you ask me how you can build trust as a supplier, the best step that you can take is to really give me the feeling that you've understood where my challenges are. I had so many sales teams that came into my meetings and that just either said, look, here's a great product, here's a great solution for you, loads of other customers have bought it, why don't you buy it as well? And that's obviously the immediate kind of where I think, or where I'm not really trusting you in the end of the day. Because what I want to have is a supplier that has understood that I have a challenge, either me as a function, me as a person, or me as an organization, and he or she can provide me with some insights on how to tackle that challenge, on how to overcome or address that need. That builds really trust. So not talking about your product first, not talking about how great of a supplier you are, but by talking about, we have understood that you have a certain problem and we think this is what you should be doing. That builds the foundation. It doesn't go from one day to the other. It doesn't go in a cold call situation. That might not really, might not be, very, very beneficial there, but it takes time. But this is the initial first step, which I always felt very comfortable with when a supplier started on that angle, namely trying to make me feel comfortable that they have understood what my challenges are.
Wow. So understand your challenges. And interestingly, you said that can be in my function, that can be as a person, it can be at organization level. And so I'm guessing that if I can do all three, you're thinking, whoa, yeah, you're the kind of guy I want to work with, which can then be used to start generating insight. But if I could just take you back to something you said slightly before that, which was about sandbagging and about this initial dance and that the price has got to be trustworthy. Just to check my understanding, are you saying that what will tend to happen is that if I want to work with you, say, okay, well, what's your kind of price, Fred? Have a look at how I respond to that. And if I've done something that isn't saying to you, this guy is genuine, I've kind of lost the chance to even go into those value discussions. Did I understand that correctly, or is that?
Yes,
is that something slightly different?
No, you're absolutely right there. This is the perception that I have to go into. So I actually, as a procurement professional, I have to go into a meeting with you, not fully trusting you, right? Because this is how we just train, right? Because if I trust you too much, probably, and I might be wrong, right? It might not be your intention, but you might just take advantage of me trusting you too much and you just, increase your margin by 5%. And my internal stakeholder will come back to me the day after and say, Jens, why have you bought that product from or service from Fred for 100, whereas I can get it off from eBay for 80, right? This is the worst case scenario that no procurement professional wants to be in, right? But the internal stakeholder can challenge you on your market research, where you cannot articulate, well, but Fred is offering me all these nice things and he has completely understood our challenges. That's the reason why we're paying more. You don't want to expose yourself that you just trusted somebody too early and they ripped you off in the end of the day. So this is what I'm just trying to say here is understand where procurement is coming from, that we need to be a bit more challenging in terms of trying to understand where you are as a supplier to overcome that potential anxiety, if you want to call it that way, that we are not delivering what we are supposed to be delivering. And I don't want to get you listeners onto the wrong track, though. Is we're not all about price, but obviously price is one element that we also get challenged on with our internal stakeholders, right? If somebody can easily compare, Fred is offering this, and this is at the price that you bought it at, Jens, but we get it off eBay for 20% less. Why was that, right? And if I don't have a good answer to that, then probably I'm not being perceived as doing a good enough job in my organization. So this is where, because this is exactly what I always feel. People talk always about we need to be collaborative, and a lot of salespeople then say, yeah, but procurement never wants to be collaborative. The first question that they ask me is, okay, what about price? And this is exactly the reason why we need to first build that trust that you are genuine, and then maybe another side remark, and I might digressing a little bit, Fred. I mean, we spend a lot of time as procurement professionals on analyzing the market and trying to understand you before we even contact you. So to your point, if you come into my meeting and you offer a price that is completely out of where the market should be based on our research, then obviously it becomes even more difficult for you to get me back into this trusting environment, right? But again, this is just the challenges that we face as a procurement professional. We need to be careful not to open up too early, because there is a risk for us and direct implication for how we are perceived as a professional within our own team.
Wow, that is such valuable insight on so many different things there. So if we're not careful, it can be over before we even start. You are going to be healthily cynical, might be another way of saying that you're not going to let the trust happen straight away, despite what anyone's good intentions. You're almost sort of putting people at arm's length a little bit, in some ways, just to protect yourself, because of that worst case scenario that you described. And I think that's something which I hope people have very much picked up on. Worst case scenario for you is when the internal stakeholder says, hey, look, you're not even doing your job right. I've just done this, and that why do we even employ you, type thing, to paraphrase it a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, we had some examples there. I mean, especially in what we would call indirect spend, so expenditures that don't go into the product that your customer is selling in the market. Let's say if we take a very hands-on example. Let's say a shampoo bottle has direct ingredients, the plastic bottle, the chemical ingredients, that is direct material, so that's one spend area. And indirect would be the travel agency that you procure as a procurement professional for the organization being able to travel, right? So these indirect spend areas, which are which maybe any kind of internal stakeholder has a view on, right? I mean, everybody knows what a ticket costs from London to New York, right? And if you then as a procurement professional say, look, we have a deal with American Express where we buy 1,000 flights, London, New York, and every flight will cost us £500. And then the internal stakeholder says, but Jens, I found something on the internet which for £300, right? What are you guys doing, right? And in that instance, if you then not can explain, well, but American Express is offering us X, Y, Z, and this is the value add that they're generating, they give us insurance, whatever it might be, right? Then you quickly are losing the credibility within your own team. So this is just one example where procurement teams are challenged from their internal stakeholders. And as a good salesperson, you anticipate that and say, look, I understand your internal challenges, understand what you need to be achieving here internally. Let me explain you why my price is maybe 10% higher than the market, right? This open and honest discussion, or the other approach would be where they said, Jens, we understand your challenges. here's our cost structure, and for you really to feel comfortable that we're not putting a 20-30% margin on our products. We actually generally want to do business with us, with you. We obviously need to make some money. And I, as a procurement professional, I'm okay with that. But obviously I don't want to pay more than my competition. That is where it boils down to.
Brilliant. It's really interesting. So to help you explain, to give you reason, to give you information. So again, going back to something you said, which is that you guys are going to be analyzing the market. You're going to be understanding things. There's a lot of information out there, but information is still valuable to you. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we cannot live without our suppliers providing us with valuable insight with regards to the market, with regards to competition, with regards to other suppliers. This is invaluable. As I said early on, I mean, many procurement teams are the only ones within an organization that have still a clear view on what a certain service or product should cost. I mean, a very simple example, oil. If you go to a Unilever or a Hentschel, it's probably only the procurement team that will be able to tell the organization, this is what we think we're going to pay for oil over the next 12 months, right? And that applies to services, that applies to any kind of goods. So where do we get this information from? Obviously, one is we do our market research. We have subscriptions to, I don't know, certain portals, or we deal with consultants, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, the most valuable information comes from our suppliers. And if you as a supplier have understood that how we think on the intervals in which we need to report back to the business on what our forecasts are on certain prices, then you can supply us with that information proactively. I had people in my team when we were buying agricultural commodities, potatoes actually in that case. And they had such a good relationship with that potato supplier that they copy pasted pretty much the deck from the supplier into the deck that we presented to finance, which at the time I was very annoyed with, because obviously you don't want, they even left the supplier label on the slide, right? So you still want to obviously have your twisted, but that tells you the story of, if you have built a very trusting relationship with your procurement counterpart, and if you supply them with credible information continuously, you have a huge leverage on positioning yourself and your product and your service and your pricing structure ahead of any kind of commercial negotiation. So understanding that supplying information is gold, is key, is for me a critical part. That also, coming back to your first question, a great tool to build trust long term.
Interesting. And so it kind of, and for me that sounds as though we can then start to be creating almost like little win-win scenarios. So rather than saying, right, we've got to start collaborating straight away, you're saying, well, you need to prove yourself a little bit, so but giving me decent insights, helping me do this stuff, understanding how I actually work and what my personal risks are. Keep doing stuff with that, we'll get lots of little wins, and these little wins become win-win, and we can start move things forward a bit faster. Is that correct? Have I kind of understood that well?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely, it definitely starts with, hey, I provide you with something that is meaningful to you, or I understand your challenges, let's talk about it approach, before it comes to, here's actually something that I want to sell you. But at the same time, I would say, obviously not every supplier is equal, right? So this is a very important thing. Again, take companies such as Procter & Gamble, for instance. There are 40,000 suppliers. So you cannot have, you cannot give the same level of attention to every single supplier, obviously, right? So it could well be that you're interacting with a procurement professional and they have to deal with 150 suppliers on their desk, on their day-to-day job. And they need to obviously cluster these suppliers with regards to importance, strategic importance, et cetera, et cetera. So as a, let's say, less important supplier, I will just not have the time to collaborate in the same way as I would have with a strategic supplier. But the trick here is that you can still deliver a lot of value. If you are a supplier that is maybe not delivering the most strategic ingredient or material or service to my organization, my needs might be different with regards to a supplier that is maybe delivering more of a strategic product. And the needs for a less strategic service might be that it should be automated. It should be every process that I interact with you should be as automated as possible, so that we're not losing a lot of time, that the invoicing are going smoothly, that all stakeholders are happy, that we don't need to do a lot of follow-ups. Maybe that even the contracts are put in place so that for the next 5 years, we don't need to talk about pricing, because quite frankly, I don't have the time to spend with you on every 6 months on negotiating a price for a material or service that is not so important to me. So what I'm just trying to say here, Fred, is for every salesperson, it's very important to analyze upfront, how important am I for my customer and their procurement team? And it's not a problem to say, well, I'm actually not that important. I'm actually not strategic. I see always that we as humans probably have the tendency to always say, yeah, of course we're strategic. We're the most strategic supplier for anyone in the world. Let's just be open and honest and say, okay, I think this customer has a set of strategic suppliers and we're not one of them, but still, what can we do? And what are the needs of that customer and their procurement team to make this relationship a success? And how can we build trust? And that is that is really key to get that differentiation. Because I had a lot of suppliers coming into my meeting and say, Jens, we want to collaborate. We want to have a cross-functional workshop and see on how we can build value with you guys. And I said, Jesus, we don't have the time for this, right? I mean, you're providing us with a product. Okay, it costs $1 million. It might be a lot for you. It is a lot of money, right? Don't get me wrong. But in the grand scheme of things, if you as a procurement professional manage 100, 200 million in expenditures, a 1 million contract is not that big of a deal. And it's, again, also not helpful if you as a supplier always say, well, I would like to meet your director. I would like to meet your CPO. Because it could well be that your CPO is saying, look, I don't have the time for this. I deliberately outsourced managing this relation to a junior buyer, and I fully trust this junior buyer to do an excellent job and creating a great relationship with you. By continuously trying to get airtime with me, you actually, you're not building more trust, because you clearly show me that you haven't understood how we operate and you haven't understood where you fall in the categorization with regards to supply importance. So just a few things here to
they're brilliant. I love that. Not all suppliers are equal, and yes, as salespeople, we want to be strategic, but if you're just not, you're not. And what you said is, but it's not a problem. You can still be valuable. You can still do good things that I will think this is great, but you're not strategic because that's just not how you fit for us. And I guess sometimes it's hard for the salesperson because you just made some numbers up, didn't you? You said, look, it's a £1 million deal in your £200 million budget. Now, for me, that's 80% of my target. That's strategically important to me, but for you, it's not. And by kind of pushing that agenda and trying to make it with you, I'm undermining myself. I'm losing that credibility. And you're going, you don't get this, do you? You don't understand me and my business because it's not strategic to us. So, stop it. I'll work with you in this way, but stop trying to force the agenda in the way that you see it rather than the way I see it. I think if I've understood that well, yeah.
Absolutely. And again, there's always value somewhere, right? You just need to understand as a lower ranking supplier. I mean, I don't find the right word. No supplier is a bad supplier. We all need you guys, right? If the tiniest thing that you supply, if you don't supply us with the chairs that we're sitting on in the office, we cannot work, obviously, right? So even if it's a lower expenditure, we still obviously want to interact with you. You just need to think, okay, they have maybe bigger fish to fry in terms of creating value. How can I help them as a lower ranked supplier to still deliver value? And that could be through seamless interaction. And the other trick here is, Fred, on this, if we stay with this example, on this £1 million contract, I probably don't care if you charge me 10% more versus the market, right? Because I have bigger fish to fry, and I probably don't spend as much time on analyzing the market and understanding, okay, is there an opportunity here or there to change suppliers? I just want to have, an automated process with which everyone is happy. My internal stakeholders are happy. They don't even, we're not even aware that you're there, pretty much, because you do such a great service. This could be value in that particular segment. So again, it's not bad to be a non-strategic supplier. There's a lot of value, and there's actually certain benefits as well. And obviously price, you're not in such a price focus as you might be as a more strategic supplier.
Brilliant. I really hope people are picking up on that it's not a bad thing. It's recognizing, and maybe, we talk about within the elements of PQ interdependence. You're saying, actually, we're not interdependent. We could live without you, but just do a good job, and we won't make that change. So it's not always going to be something where we have to interact and become that close to really deliver on that value, because actually the stuff I see as value, you've just not understood well. You've not understood well. Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. Let me move on then, and kind of, I could talk just around that for so long, but there's another kind of area that, again, I want to explore kind of within using the partnering skills framework, and this is the concept of self-disclosure and feedback. And so for me, this is about me giving bits of information, but also giving you information back about yourself. I want to kind of create a bit of a weird scenario and see how you might respond to this. In that, if as a supplier, I sit down with you and we're doing a review, and hopefully we've kind of got those scheduled in, and we are significant to each other, we're getting nearer towards the strategic end of things, and I say, and hopefully say it a bit more elegantly, but you know what, you're very difficult to sell to. You're not easy for me to make. Sorry, you don't make it easy for me to help you. How do you respond to that? Again, maybe a bit more elegant, I would hope, in the way I put it, but that kind of feedback, saying, you're not helping me help you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I personally always appreciated it, right? It might be my, as you might have heard from my beautiful accent, my Germanic backgrounds being like to the point, right?
There is that, Jens, yeah. The more feedback, the better. Tell me I'm rubbish.
Yeah, that's what we thrive on as Germans. Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely of help. I mean, look, I mean, as a procurement professional, we're talking here about, let's say, the more upper end of the scale of procurement teams, right? We're not talking about the tactical bunch that are still out there. I mean, there's still a lot of procurement people that are really not focused on value, but we're talking about the ones that really know what matters, namely interacting well with suppliers. So let's focus on them. What their role is to be a account manager for the supplier within their own organization, right? So they are responsible for the supplier. So I am relying on you to tell me what is not going well in our relationship. Are we not paying you on time? Are we not actually consuming or ordering as much as we contractually agreed upon? Are the sites that you're supplying us to, are they letting you wait? For instance, you rock up with the truck and nobody's unloading your truck, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Or as a consultant, we not taking the 200 hours that we agreed. We only took 20 hours, and you reserved all that capacity and the people for us, and this is exactly what a review meeting should be all about. Tell me what is not going well, because I am, as a procurement professional, the account manager within my organization, and I am, let's say, an escalation vehicle as well, so that I can take the right steps internally to make sure that we abide by what we've agreed upon. Because what is more and more a theme out there is that procurement teams are the custodians of being a good corporate citizen, and a good corporate citizen includes to treat your suppliers well, right? So if we agree to pay you in 45 days time, then we should be paying you in 45 days time. And the good procurement teams out there actually have in their KPIs a clear measure to say, okay, how are we treating our suppliers? Do they actually want to do business with us, right? Again, the best organizations out there have realized there's a fight for the best supplier capability out there. So if we are not are passionate about our suppliers, if we're not showing them that we care about them, they will sell their stuff to someone else and to competition potentially, and we lose market share because of that. So you as procurement professional, you are responsible to make sure that you as Fred, that you want to do business with me. Of course, the price needs to be right, and you cannot just ask for whatever, but that kind of mentality is definitely out there. And so the open and honest feedback from your side, elegantly articulate. I get that, right? I'm still a customer, obviously, but tell me, look, Jens, here is where we see an issue. Taking the volume here, we creating extra cost because of waiting time. Maybe even your people in production don't treat our people well. We had all sorts of cases where suppliers did say exactly that, and out of that could emerge also certain improvement programs. For instance, a supplier could say, look, Jens, we've realized that you always order only half a truckload of the stuff that we're selling to you every week. Why don't you order every 2 weeks, 1 truck? It saves you XYZ cost, right? And obviously it helps you as a supplier as well with not needing to process 2 orders, but just 1 order, or loading only 1 truck instead of 2. This is exactly what we require. A supplier that first obviously raises concerns, that makes us aware, and at the same time that identifies outages that could actually be turned around into efficiency programs that helps you and it helps us. That is definitely a way forward for procurement and supply teams.
Which very naturally moves us into sort of salespeople and their customers being comfortable with change, and looking towards the future. Having that kind of future orientation as let's keep trying to make this better. But certainly that's an interesting thing that, again, I hope people listening who don't realize this or don't know it, that the procurement guys, there is a competition, like you've said, and they want to be looking for the best suppliers and are under some pressure for that. And as you said, even have it as a KPI that people want to do business with us. It's a nice mindset thing, I think, if a salesperson feels beaten up and that everything's stacked against them and that life's unfair and the dark side are attacking me. It's like, well, no, remember, these are the pressures. This is the thinking that's going on with these people. And ultimately, it is people. I think we sometimes forget that. We label procurement these kind of androids who are sort of doing whatever they do. But no, I say that flippantly, but it's a really important part. They've got those same pressures. It's the same risks, it's the same feelings that need to be recognised and worked with, if you like.
Yeah, no, totally, Fred. And a lot is about risk management as well. I mean, even if let's say we have an incumbent supplier on certain materials or services, and you come as a new provider and say, Jens, why don't we do business? We have the better product. We better understand you. We know that, our competition is not providing as good as a service as we could. Why don't you give us a chance, right? And mostly that does not happen because of risk. Especially if you are producing a product that is highly visible in the end consumer market, right? Again, coming back to the shampoo bottle, if you as an end consumer are not happy with that shampoo that you've bought for years because we changed a supplier, you will no longer buy that brand. We lose market share, we get delisted in the retailer. That happens super quick. So you can obviously understand then that as a procurement professional, even if you see the value in introducing a new supplier vis-a-vis the incumbent supplier, you need to make sure that you convince the internal stakeholders that taking that risk is worth it, right? There's obviously also some costs involved that maybe the R&D or a technical team, they want to say, look, we want to test that new provider. We want to see if the end consumer notices the change, and that can occur a lot of costs, right? If you play in 30 different markets, for instance, with that shampoo bottle, you obviously want to test that change in the 30 different markets. So again, here's another area where, as a new supplier coming to the table, you can anticipate that and say, look, I've done my homework. We've actually done a test, or we've maybe had contract manufactured that shampoo and did some consumer testing, and we feel there's not a big difference between the provider that you're currently using. And that applies to service and supply, applies to all sorts of. But we're coming back to the initial trusting thing, right? This builds trust, that you show me I have understood.
That is such an elegant full circle. Yeah, it comes back down to, no, it is that I have understood. I mean, that's brilliant. And I'm going to ask you one last question, just about yourself. But again, you've given us some great tips there. You know, understand my challenges of being in this position. You know, and this is very much about the internal stakeholders that are putting you potentially under pressure. Supply credible information continuously. You know, not all suppliers are equal, but that's not a bad thing. You know, you can still be valuable in what you do. Anticipate. You know, do your homework. That's going to help us manage the risks. I mean, these are just a couple of things that I've scribbled down. There's a lot more, because you were giving us a hell of a lot there. But no, that is so useful. But just thinking about the future orientation element. What about yourself? You know, what does the future have in store for you, do you think? Where's Fivis going, and your kind of work at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, our passion is really to build or to close the void, let's say. That might be even the better analogy, to close the void between how sales team see procurement. I generally believe that procurement has a great future ahead of them. Maybe 15% of the procurement population is already where they should be in terms of creating value. So that obviously means that there's a good 70% that still needs to improve, and we want to be part of that transformation journey. But we can only do that if we have suppliers and salespeople that do understand that how procurement operates, what their KPIs are, what makes them tick, etc., etc. So we want to be hopefully at least a small contributor on that transformation process, and it's very exciting, Fred. I mean, we do this now for 3 years as part of the Fivis partnership, and it has been very, very interesting. And I very much enjoy, especially the conversation with somebody like yourself as well. That gives me, you know, loads of new ideas as well, and what we should be doing. But look, we on a journey here, and what will make us happy if we can see that, you know, our approach, our model, our, you know, training methodology is applied in sales team and in procurement teams in the future, so that this void can be closed and bridges can be built, so that, you know, we can, you know, delight the end consumer as we should be doing as supplier and customer. So I'm very hopeful that especially now during the crisis as well, that people have actually realized the supply chain you know, consists of suppliers that we need to value. And so I see loads of opportunities here as well, that we come closer together and operate the supply network and the value chain much more efficiently and value focused than we've done before.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that little soundbite. The supply chain consists of suppliers. But yeah, like you say, and you know, and just don't forget that sometimes. But now the other thing I'm going to do is go through this, and you've talked about understanding a number of times. I'm going to count those up. You know, it's about different parties understanding each other, and the more we all understand, the better job we can do. You know.
That's true. Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you? Because you know, it sounds as though you're excited. Your thinking is very exciting. You know, it's very up to date. Yeah, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, so we are always on LinkedIn. So you can check out my profile, Jens Hentschel, on LinkedIn, or you can go onto our website, fivis.io. That's fivis.io. Shoot me an email at jens@fivis.io. But LinkedIn is probably where you can find me most. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Brilliant. I'll drop those contact details into the show notes, Jens. That is fantastic. Thank you so much just for sharing and to giving us those insights, and maybe reminding some people about certain things, or maybe opening their eyes to stuff. I think it's been very, very useful.
Fantastic. No, thanks again for having me, Fred. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you liked it, why not leave a review? If you didn't, also leave one. Remember, it's all about the feedback. If you want to learn more about your own PQ, why not go to the book website, which is www.throughpartnering.co.uk, and there you can take a little self-audit. And of course, if you want to get in touch to talk about how you can use partnering skills, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So until next time, keep thinking about how you can adopt a more modern and collaborative approach to selling by selling through partnering skills.